Good afternoon, John Donovan,
Hey, Marty Keller.
and good afternoon to fellow podcast viewers. Welcome to the Intentional Living Podcast. Marty Keller here in Sacramento with my colleague, mentor, and guru, John Donovan in Oceanside, California. Um, Remember we talked last week, John, about taking compliments.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm not sidestepping that one.
all right, good.
Okay,
Because I'd feel insulted because you are all those things to me.
thank
Um,
you.
so this is a podcast that focuses on seeking to break patterns of behavior. We all
Hmm.
human beings, we all have behavior patterns, but oftentimes we have behavior patterns that we find that we don't want, and we can't understand why they keep coming back. Sometimes we find ourselves saying, I'm never going to do that again, and then doing it the very next opportunity. Or sometimes we say, I'm going to start doing so and so, and then we don't start doing so and so. And so,
Right.
what we do here in the Intentional Living podcast is we work on demystifying those behavior patterns and discovering how to create the patterns that we truly, genuinely want in the depths of our hearts so that we can all create lives that come out of our deepest desires and not the lives that come from hidden compulsions that exist in our subconscious mind and operate on a level that we can't even see. So looking at just breaking patterns of behavior. And so John developed a process which is called intentional living, and a very specific process within that, or a very specific practice, I should say, is what we call the accountability tree. And last time, John, you recall, last couple of weeks, we talked about emotional triggers, and we began the year by talking about how triggers are, what they are, how they show up in our lives, and then uh, last week we talked about how to, as I came up with the term, how to rejigger those triggers, how to use the fact that we all have triggers, and again, something you can't get rid of, you can't not have triggers, but what we can do is we can befriend them and use them to create something different. And so we talked toward the end of the podcast about how the accountability tree practice itself is essential to creating that change, and that we would today go into greater depth and detail about the accountability tree itself. So, if that's okay with you, I'm going to ask you to take it away.
Oh, okay. I'm going to bring up the board. Um, as I remember, we talked about triggers, and then saw them as events that got us into a reaction mode, which is in the survival uh, field here: fight, flight, freeze, please. Even though that response, that reaction, wasn't necessarily needed in the time. Um, when I started putting this material together, I was in recovery for 10, 15 years, and I'm struggling with my own reactions to everyday things that happen in life, like sitting down eating breakfast, going out, things that, and then me finding myself in a reactive mode or a defensive mode, and doing some um, action that was not congruent with what was going on in my life. And this is the same as somebody struggling with either codependency or addiction or some type of avoidant behavior. So um, the reaction that I go into, defense or attack, comes from something inside me that we use the word triggered or resonates with something in the current reality that used to appear either um, um, violent or traumatic, and we get the word is associated to with the memory, um, and I find myself reacting, um, and it's also in that moment an opportunity to notice the reactive response. And having been schooled or educated on um, patterns of behavior that I don't want, coming from unresolved, in the green here, post traumatic stress. Um, I can address them in the moment. It's like I use several examples. One of the examples I use is burnt toast at breakfast, and I'm reacting like it's the end of the world or somebody's attacking me or doing this on purpose.
You mean like
Um,
you mean like in current life, like right,
in
like this
current life,
moment.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Instead of what happens now is I get curious as to the why. Why is it we set the dial too high? Is the toaster on the blitz? I don't see it as something personal. Having done this work for so long, um, we got into we described the problem well. Excuse me. Then we started talking about the way out or the solution. And we talked about the accountability tree that I have up here on the right part of the board, um, and how this process um, reframes old information or past experience, heals trauma that's the root cause of the disturbance in the present moment, and allows us options or choice in the moment where before it was a set pattern of behavior that I found myself stuck in, and I didn't know how to get out. So, um, what I've discovered in this process is that in the present moment, if I identify the reaction instead of a response. And what I mean by reaction is it happens so quick, I don't even know that it's happening until I actually realize it's going on, like raising my voice or pounding the table or doing some what I call coercive or violent behavior. Catching it in the moment when the trauma is resonating with whatever event that's happening in the present moment, the old trauma, and then addressing it in that moment. And so that's what I'm going to do my best to explain how I move from being reactionary to responsive to situations in my life that were, I want to say, in line with the event or congruent with the intensity of what's happening. Burnt toast is like 0.03 on a scale of 1 to 10, where my reaction was like somebody just threw something at me and I'm defending myself, which is a 5, 6, 7, and then staying in the present moment. So if I simply notice, number one, notice that I'm in a reactionary mode, take a breath, and then just say the truth about what's happening, my perception, what's happening in the moment with me. Um, and then owning the behavior of the reaction, like um, aggressive or defensive, or taking something personal and getting, I want to say my feelings hurt. Another way to say that is me getting butt hurt. And I think more people can um, relate to the butt hurt part. Um, and then acting in a way that's irrational. So if I simply own the behavior, take it to the tree in this part right here where it says my truth. Now, when I developed this accountability process or accountability tree, I had to explain what I mean by accountability. And if you look it up, accountability in the dictionary, it's the it it talks about being blameworthy or somebody being punished for whatever the action was, and that's not what I mean in this context. So what I'm talking about is my ability to account, just account, state the data of my current behavior without blame or judgment. Just say the truth. I was dismissive or I was defensive and I raised my voice. And I take that part to the where's my truth, that raising my voice or becoming defensive or taking it personal is in alignment with the old information I have stored in my memory, which I'm going to call unresolved trauma. And that truth resonates with whatever motivated the reaction. And if I own it, it validates the trauma, um, like the burnt toast. The message I got early in my is don't mess with the food. There were times that I and my brothers went hungry or went to school without lunch. So food became a trigger. So having the toast burnt or something going wrong with breakfast or the food was messed up or destroyed or spilled, I would go into this reactive mode of, oh my God, this is tragic or terrible, or and lose. Like today, I know that if I burn a piece of toast, I have another one that I can replace it with, and it's not well, it's not triggering. It's like maybe an inconvenience, but something I can deal with. I can respond to.
Can I just ask a question here?
Yes, please.
So is it not the case? It's not. So I listen to you and I try to put myself in your place in my family of origin around eating and food and so forth. Um, and is it not true that not only can you have fear that could derive from fear of going hungry,
Yeah.
but could you not also have fear derived from fear of being blamed for causing people to go hungry?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's like it can be this triggering energy or the what you called earlier the origin energy or the origin experience can be multi-layered in terms of the whammy that it
Yes.
does to us.
Yeah.
Which I just raise that because it helps, particularly if you're new to this work, it can help us understand why 25, 30, 40 years later, burnt toast can create the same kind of feeling state,
Right.
even though, like you just said, to an adult who has a job or has means, burnt toast is just burnt toast.
Yeah.
It's not the cause of shame, and you made people go hungry and all that kind of energy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A simple inconvenience where before it was showstopper, and okay, people had to
Right.
pay the price. Yeah,
So showstopper at the level of emotional storm
yeah,
inside.
hmm yeah. So what I'm doing my best to explain is the process of reframing the memory or the old information. Um, Everybody, including myself, in this moment, are motivated and guided by past experience. Um, and if in my past experience I don't have an option in whatever situation I find myself, in my past experience, if I don't have an option, I do not have the option in my, I want to say, repertoire or capacity. Um, Doing this, I want to call it a healing process, accountability tree, healing complex post traumatic stress, trauma that's held in the memory and in the body, to reframe it so that I gain options. And that's what I mean by choice and exhibiting my power, which is in direct proportion to the options I have in the moment. Instead of the two options I have, get mad, die, or hit it or leave it, in relationship issues stuff, I'll have more options available to me based on um, current reality. I have no options here except for to hit it or leave it, or scream and yell, or go hungry. Um, um, when I heal the trauma, the message from my subconscious, the information from my subconscious, I gain options in the moment. Like in the case of the burnt toast, maybe it'd be a good idea if we go out to breakfast. That's cool. I'll buy. No big deal. Um, and that's what this process does. And I want to get back into this bracketed area right now. So if I just say the truth of what's going on with me in the moment, the end result, I'm screaming, yelling. Nice deep breath. That truth has encoded in it the message from my subconscious. And it's
So
a
you're talking about the
frequency.
original, talking about the original message.
The original message, don't mess with the food.
Right.
So when I say the truth, I'm being unreasonable about this toast situation. It validates the trauma, which um, I used to work with a guy that worked with teenagers from urban teenagers, and it just blew my mind that he would choose to do that. And I asked him, "What do you do with these kids?" And he said, "I see them and I hear them, and they do ritual and processes with them, but they see them and hear them." So when I say the truth, I'm being verbally violent because the toast is burnt. What I'm doing is recognizing that little guy inside me that's scared, has some kind of fear around food. And when I take the breath, this emotion, this thing I call emotion, happens. I have a sense in my body of relief, of relax, of this stuck energy moving through and out. And I'm left lucid. I'm left recognizing where I'm at, present day. I'm not back in the past. I'm in the present moment. I'm with somebody I love, and there's plenty to go around, or resources that I can utilize in the moment to assuage my fear. Um, and in that process of healing, validating. I see my hurt little child, wounded little child, and I'm not blaming or judging. I'm just experiencing. And then I can go into um, what I want to change this reactive response to. So, raising my voice, threatening, nice deep breath. Yeah, it makes sense on this level of being motivated by subconscious memories that were traumatizing. I say, I intend to be kind, I intend to be lucid, I intend to um, be peaceful. And there's a healing that happens inside me. And the way I'll work with people and I'll take them through the tree and whatever that true statement is for them, um, I'll ask them to do it again in real time right after they did it. And when they say their truth, like I raised my voice at the toast being burnt. What would the, I was emotionally violent to my partner, um, and then go through the process, breathe. I intend to be kind. When they say it again, the the behavior in the present moment. I was emotionally violent to my partner. There's something different in the tone and how they say it. That's a demonstration that something has shifted internally with them. Something has effectively addressed the trauma that um, triggered the reaction. And people notice it, feel the difference. And the more I do this, the less impact that old trauma has on my current reality. Um, there were things that I could barely say out loud that I would own. I didn't want to own them. Like one of the ones, I'm mean to the point of cruelty. I didn't want to say that. And I did. Just, it was my truth. I was cruel. In other words, I'd be mean and then just continue. It's like a dog with a bone. And then the next time I said it, there was something different. It was like, yeah, yeah, wow, I intend to be kind. And the healing happens. Um, I want to say the healing happens in this process. And um, it's demonstrable in the results. The current results are sometimes subtly different, sometimes remarkably different. My reaction response or my perception of self and how I relate to people around me. So, um,
Well, a couple things. When I facilitate people going through the tree, I focus I focus as best I can on inviting people to become 100% present with the emotional resonance of the truth that they're speaking.
yes.
We've talked about this in many other podcasts, and so for the newcomer, the idea is John said this, and I really want to emphasize it that um, I mean, let's use the burnt toast thing happens. Like, what's the truth? Is the truth is I was mean to my son, my kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I yelled at my kid, and I saw that I generated a look of fear on his face, and
Right.
then I say, okay, so how did that feel? And invite people to feel. And sometimes people are going through this in the very moment.
Yeah.
So they don't really have to recall, it just shows up. And then I invite people to stay with that feeling and, you know, do their best to not name it anything, just feel it.
Yeah.
Um, so when you said a few minutes ago, you were quoting your friend or colleague about, what he does, I see them and I hear them.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. I want to reemphasize that's what we're doing when we sit with these very uncomfortable feelings,
Yes.
is that we're seeing ourselves and we're hearing ourselves. So that's the no blame, no judgment angle here. That's why
Hmm.
it's really critical for us to work as hard as we can to notice when blaming and judgment shows up, because it will,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
the first few times we do this, is it's because it's our default position, unfortunately.
Right.
There's something wrong with me as my default position.
Right.
So if I can, as to the extent that I can stay just with the feeling and just feel it. And I, John, I would say 90% of the time, the feeling is concentrated somewhere in my gut.
Yep.
Maybe in my chest, my breathing, or down in my stomach and my gut. Something uncomfortable is thrusting itself into my awareness.
Yes.
So I sit there and I support people sitting there with that, um, and then taking the breath. It's like, okay, now take a breath.
Mm.
And what do you want?
Yeah.
How do you want to feel is the question I would then next ask. How do you want to feel? And oftentimes people will say, well, I don't want to feel this. And I say, yep, yeah, I know that. So give the universe instructions as to what you want to replace that with.
Right.
And it's really been interesting to me in doing this work for as long as I have, is that for many people, that's a hard question.
Very difficult.
How do I want to feel?
Yeah.
Because we're so used to feeling what we just encountered.
Yep.
And we're used to feeling that and then reacting against it. So way back at the beginning of this podcast, they said we're talking about dealing with compulsions, and that's one of those compulsions. I feel something uncomfortable, and my compulsion is to get rid of it.
Right.
And so the training that we're doing here, you can see, for those of you can looking at John's board way over there on the left-hand side, 5 constants of relationship. Number 3 is move toward the pain. So that's what when we facilitate these practices for people, we're actually supporting them moving toward that pain, being in the pain,
Hmm.
noting nobody's going to die from this. Now, the little kid's experience when he or she first felt that, it might have felt like dying,
Yes.
which is why we engage in these avoidant behaviors that you talked about earlier, to avoid ever feeling that again.
Right.
And so that's why, um, when you were saying earlier that the second time you say this or the third time you say this, it doesn't have the same, has a different resonance.
Right.
And what I was thinking is that maybe because the first time I own a truth that I've been unwilling to own before is the most powerful time. And then everything after that, it's already shifted.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that the configuration, the inner configuration or defense has been breached. Once I say that, I'm cruel, I'm arrogant. The next time I own that, it's not the same anymore because there's
No.
already been a shift.
Right. The power gets taken away from the self-recriminating blame judgment about that, whatever that issue was. It
Right.
loses its power. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So the this accountability tree practice, so again, we're just scratching the surface of it, and we're coming to the end of our time together here. So we can go into it more in depth in the next time, or
Okay.
continue to explore the power of this and how it works. But I'm just going to conclude this, and then, as always, invite you to make any summarizing
Okay.
comments. But um, I've said this many times on this podcast, and I'll say it frequently and forever, is that this work is most powerfully done in group. That um, when I witness other people doing this process, I'm adding that I'm seeing them and hearing them energy that
Yeah.
you were referring to.
Hmm.
So if you're in a group of 15 people and you're going through this process, you have 15 people who are seeing and hearing you without blame or judgment,
Yes.
with, as Alice Miller says, as enlightened witnesses to your changing your inner configuration through this, which is an act of self-love. Doing this work
Yeah.
is an act of self-love.
Yeah.
And so we have four different accountability practice groups that all meet on Zoom at 4 different days of the week. And the times and dates and the Zoom room addresses of those meetings are going to be at the end of the podcast. So if you'd like to join us, I'd just like to invite you. Find a time and date that works for you. Please feel free to join us and experience the work for yourself. So with that, John, I'd leave you the last word.
Yeah. I was going to mention Alice Miller and the enlightened witness aspect of this. Um, and you and I could talk about this all day long. And then when somebody has the experience of this practice, there's something they know that I don't have the words to explain to them. So if you're curious or you're struggling with, and I call it subconscious impulses to whatever the action is that are irrational, please come and sit with us for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, and we'll do our best to explain it. And then, if you're open to it, guide you through this process so that there's something you can take with you when you leave the group. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Marty.
All right. Well, thank you, John. And thanks everybody for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.
All right. Okay, Marty. Thank you.
You bet.